Welcome to Davis Legal. I'm the founder and managing partner. We're a boutique cannabis law practice helping clients in the cannabis space by taking the anxiety out of the uncertainty of operating in the cannabis industry and allowing them to focus on what they do best, which is getting wellness products and services to the world at large. I'm really excited today to have Kate Curley with me, entrepreneur, advocate, and content creator with a passion for cannabis. Kate has worked with cannabis brands in content creation and marketing. Now she's focusing on her own brand and advocating for more equitable access for cannabis to mainstream marketing, which is a huge need, certainly for all of my clients and everyone I meet in the cannabis industry. So Kate, thank you so much for joining me. And I'm really looking forward to talking to you today.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited for this conversation too.
So tell us a little bit about, I know I did a little bit of an intro for you, but give our listeners a much more detailed picture of Kate Curley, the woman, the brand, the advocate.
Sure. So I am from upstate New York. I moved to Colorado 7 years ago to dive into the cannabis industry. I came from corporate healthcare and really wanted to get connected to the cannabis community and further with the plant. Moved out to Colorado with dollar signs in my eyes while I was a consumer and wanted to connect with the space. I definitely was like, oh, this is, it's the gold rush. I can make some money off of this. And almost immediately getting to Colorado and connecting with the industry, my complete vision of the plant and my connection to it really turned, it flip-flopped. And I definitely was no longer thinking like, how can I make some money? It was more from a passion side of things of like, wow, how can I support this plant? How can I, fill gaps in the industry and just help the foundation of the community? Education is obviously still a huge thing in 2022 that's needed. And back in 2015, that was big as well. So that's where I felt like my piece to the puzzle was fitting in was education and advocacy. I started becoming active on social media for the first time ever and would put like pieces of art out there per se of either the plant or myself or like byproducts. And these pieces that I was putting out there were getting a lot of traction. Some of them were going viral. And I really saw that this type of education was working and making a difference, where I would put something out there, lure someone in to read the caption. And I was like, I was an advocate doing so. And then I started building a social platform through that, gaining an audience. And just naturally, 7 years later, I have Kate Curley Media, where it's a media brand that focuses on the education, advocacy, content creation of the plant and people connected to it. I kind of expand with sustainable building materials and clean beauty, regenerative agriculture, stuff like that. And
Kate, let me ask you a question real quick. You talked a little bit, and we're going to come back to this later, but you talked about your social media following then allowed you to build sort of an education brand. And you built a pretty significant social media following in a short period of time. Tell everyone what that, like the kind of the numbers of what that looked like.
Yeah. So back in 2015 is when I started with Instagram and Facebook. I feel like in a rare way, Facebook is actually where I got my start, and it was through my personal Facebook. A lot of those videos and photos were going viral, being shared a lot. There was like bills and legislation that I was kind of helping push through, also knocking through like corruption, things like that. And so it was like this advocacy first, but building a following on top of that. And then came Instagram, where I started gaining a following there as well. Today I've got like 25,000 followers. And I think it was like at 15,000, I was like, that was also during a turning point with social media where influencer marketing was becoming something. And I'm like, okay, so I can really do this passion thing that I love and be an advocate and monetize as influencer marketing at the same time.
Sure.
Um, so yeah, around 15K is where I was like, okay, I can turn this into a business. And that is what it is at this point.
Yeah, it's a massive industry. And we talked a little bit before about, for those of us who aren't in marketing, so lawyer, entrepreneur, starting my own business, and marketing is obviously not something I'd ever done before. Now you get into marketing, you can't get a one person for everything in marketing. It's there are so many specialties and so many niches, and then you add the layer on top of that of cannabis, and it just gets even more complicated.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about how you got there and how you navigate that.
Yes. So, really, as a side hustle, while I was building my own social platforms, I had brands reaching out to me saying, hey, in addition to collaborating and promoting our brand, would you be interested in managing as well as a social media manager? So, I brought in, at one point, I had 8 clients, and most of them I started all of their social medias from scratch. So that's like creating a Facebook, a Twitter, an Instagram, a
So there's like
LinkedIn.
0 followers, no history whatsoever. Yeah.
Yep. And yeah, creating those and just kind of figuring out how to like create motherboards and really organize the passwords and the emails, and how does that all work easily for one brand to have access. So I figured out how to do all of that in a really smooth manner. And as I continued to bring in brands, became really good at that and skilled. Um, and then also, while working with those brands in my own social, um, really got an eye for, particularly in cannabis and hemp, what does go viral and
Hmm.
what really attracts the eye, how to bring people in to read about someone's product or event. It
Yeah. And
is.
I think that's really important
Mhm.
because there are lots of people out there you can hire and contract to just do your social media, right? And they'll create you a calendar and they'll pull images, they'll pull lots of pictures of buds and et cetera. But that, especially now with as thick as the competition is across so many platforms, it seems to me as not as a marketing specialist, not as a content creator specialist, that unless you have someone who really understands your message and really understands how to do that, how to pick the right picture and then add the right caption to then get them to follow through to your product, you're kind of throwing money down the drain.
Yeah, it is super difficult. And like, again, being on both sides of it, where I've got my own brand and I do influencer marketing, content creation, and then, managing social media brands, which I'm now stepping away from because that I just don't have the bandwidth anymore. Whereas creating my own influencer marketing campaigns. So being on both sides of it, I really understood the difficulty in finding people that understood the message. It is so deep, where yes, they need to understand social media and cannabis and hemp, but then the company's mission and kind of energy as well.
Hmm.
Just an example, one of the 8 brands that I was managing, I was helping this brand try and find someone come on to take my role. And it took a really long time to find someone. We finally did. But even still to this day, like going through training with her of, just trying to find that particular energy where it's like, you're doing a great job, but here's like, try and go down this path, a little bit more to the right. Not politically, but just it's difficult, because even between hemp and cannabis brands, everyone has their own mission and energy. um yeah.
And so if you're as somebody who has been hired by companies and has helped companies hire for marketing, and you're talking to a bunch of entrepreneurs, a bunch of startups. The cannabis industry as a whole is a young industry. Um, what do you say are the top three things you need to decide as a company, as a person hiring, before you just go out and, get a marketing person and you're like, okay, I'm now going to give you 40% of my budget, increase my bottom line? What are the top three things that they need to have in their mind before they hire for that person?
Yeah. Well, and going back to being an influencer myself and having marketing
Hmm.
agencies contact me, I can tell you that there are so many middleman marketing agencies that will reach out on behalf of brands, and just the representation is not, for the majority, it's been pretty off. These brands, marketing agencies are in cannabis and hemp, so their approach to influencers is just, unfortunately, I've not had the greatest experiences. So it's difficult. But the top three things, like you were saying before, in social media and marketing in general, there are so many different specifics and niches that someone can be skilled in, from,
Hmm.
knowing about SEO and backlinks and analytics, to someone that's really great at creating graphics and, content to put out there that's either photography or photoshopped, whatever their skills are. So I would say first, like, figure out where their skill set is, having them provide some past work that they can do, and does that fit exactly what you're looking for during that
Hmm.
time. The second, thing that's obviously super big is, do they know the plant? It would be difficult to have someone come in that doesn't know anything about cannabis and hemp. You can do research online, but there's a lot of false information out there. So it'd be easy to pull something where it looks very legitimate and
Hmm.
it's not. And then
Yeah.
the third thing should probably be the first thing, honestly, and it's just the budget. Where is
Right.
your budget at as a company, and what is this social media manager, if that's what you're going to call it, what are they looking for in pay? And then kind of matching that with their skill set. Like, does the budget fit what they can do? And, like, just trying to match what that looks like.
Yeah. That's super helpful. And so I want to kind of switch into something that happened to you recently that I think is one of the big reasons that hiring for this position is so important. Choosing an influencer, if you're going to work with them, is so important. Monitoring your social media platforms, choosing your social media platforms is so important, and why having an expert in all the things that you're talking about, and the right one, is important. Is that cannabis on a regular basis, whether you're above or below the 0.3% THC, gets ghosted, canceled, just kicked off social media platforms left, right, and center. And what does that look like? What is the result of that? How damaging is that? And what does that equate to in terms of the short term and long term for a cannabis business?
Yeah. Oh, it's such an unfortunate thing that in May 2022, specifically with hemp, there is still just such incredible suppression of the
Mm.
plant. The AI technology on all of the platforms cannot tell the difference between cannabis and hemp, which, no wonder, because it's all cannabis at the end of the day. And, according to their guidelines, there's something about the sale of illegal drugs. So it
Right.
really seems to save them. Their AI is not equipped enough to tell the difference between cannabis or hemp. And so they basically just shut it all down. Um, Instagram in May 2022, it seems more than ever I'm seeing accounts getting shut down. Um,
Hmm.
another big platform these days is TikTok. And unfortunately, the cannabis and hemp industry doesn't really have a shot on there right now. You'll see some content creators like wiggling their way through, but I've never seen someone get to a very viral level, because what I say TikTok has is a zero tolerance policy when it comes to
Mhm.
cannabis and hemp. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's
didn't you have an issue where you were simply talking about an education or advocating for something that wasn't even, let's say, not plant touching, it didn't involve a plant, and you got your post got taken down?
Yeah, so I had close to 400,000 followers on TikTok a couple months ago. And while I was consciously trying to not talk about the plant much, I'm just so passionate about it that here and there I would be like, I'm going to put this out. And I mean, this should be fine. I'm not showing the plant, using the plant. It's more content based. And I had a lot of posts taken down where eventually I don't even know exactly what it was because I hadn't posted in a couple weeks, but my account got permanently banned. And so things like, what happens often to brands, aside from being suppressed and having to wake up worried that your hard work and resources, are completely gone with your account being taken down. Short term, let's say for someone like myself, a content creator, the brands that I had collaborated with that had free, rent-free content and promotion sitting on my page are now erased. Brands that had paid me, but I haven't, posted for yet. They were scheduled to be posted. Those brands now need to be reimbursed. So that's taking away from my business. Also, any potential future brands that would be reaching out because they see my content, that's not happening. And so long term, I don't have a business. Like
Right.
I'm completely out of business, and all the extreme hours and resources that had gone into creating the content is completely wiped out. Like it's such a new concept for us, but the cannabis and hemp industry in general is suffering so badly from having the worry, and it is like serious mental stress, especially for someone like myself that is a content creator.
Right.
The worry of getting deleted, and then when you do, I mean, you're literally out of business. And so I'm a content creator, but then you have like the small farmer that is trying to promote their business in some form, and they're selling hemp, which is federally legal, but the AI doesn't have it together and can't figure out what is hemp, what is not, what is the sale of illegal drugs, what is not. And, they're being damaged as well.
Right. And it brings up that specific example for me would play out where, so the farmer spends, let's say, $10,000, hires a marketing person to come in and manage create an account for them, start it up, they're promoting it. And then they start running it themselves, right? They've spent their 10,000, they're running it themselves. And Instagram comes in and cancels their account. And now they don't have that money to go back and have it done again. And then they want to potentially sue the marketing agency or get their money back. But the marketing person has no control over that. And now the farmer's out $10,000 plus whatever else they've spent on campaigns, et cetera, since then.
Yeah.
In one night.
Yeah, it's incredibly sad. I mean, and it's truly unjust and unfair. The reality is that the AI, like the technology, is not up to date enough to fit our industry. And it really seems like it's clearly not a priority. They don't care, Meta, Facebook, they don't care enough to
Right.
fix it. So we're the ones suffering when we shouldn't be, because their technology isn't up to par. And some will say, well, this will get itself figured out once cannabis is federally legal. Right now it's not in all states. And it's like, okay, but hemp is,
Right.
the farmers, in even like, let's just say the farmers that are farming for fiber and grain. I mean, these are like people that came from farming for soy, cotton, and, you know, wheat, and now they're trying
Right.
to put all their money into hemp. And these farmers are having to suffer. And it's just, it's sad, it's ridiculous. And there definitely needs to be change, and something needs to be done about that.
And do you think that all cannabis companies are treated equally when it comes to the platforms, when it comes to posting on social media?
No, based on money. So, you know, I've had direct contact with agencies that essentially work for Facebook. And it's like,
Mhm.
if you can give us this amount of money, you'll get what they call is whitelisted, where you basically have your account cleared and you don't have to worry about getting flagged or suppressed. So big cannabis or big hemp is able to do so, but the small farmer again isn't able to do something like that. And I have, you know, again, learned directly from these agencies. You've got companies like, you know, Nike or Reebok that are putting millions and millions into Facebook marketing. That's how
Right.
Facebook runs. So that's where they're, you know, that's like their piggy bank and the income of Facebook. They don't care about these little cannabis hemp farmers that don't have money to put into the platform. And so they just continue to be suppressed. So it's all based on money. And I can tell you that I've had direct conversations. This started with Clubhouse, where I've had direct conversations with executives within Instagram where I've called out the issue. They've said, you're right, that is a problem. Maybe, you know, we should do something about it. And they just never follow through. So it's really care that they just don't care about the industry.
And that's so interesting that there is, in fact, I mean, I guess none of us should be surprised that there's a back door, right? That there's a back door. That it's turning into a pay to play system. Um, and so I mean, what in your mind needs to be done about these kinds of pain points right now, that could help the cannabis industry? Everybody's always, you know, we always talk about cannabis legalization, that once cannabis is legal federally, both above and below 0.3%, all of our worries will go away. I've always thought that that's probably a little rose colored. I doubt that that's how it will happen. I think even if it becomes legal, it'll take years and years for them to regulate,
Right.
and to change the way that things work now. So assuming that we're not going to get legalization under the current administration anytime soon, what can we do? What can a small business do to help itself? And then what can we as an industry do to start calling out some of these companies and some of these practices?
Yeah. So I think as an activist, my answer to that is probably more on the extreme, but just being a content creator myself and really understanding what's going on here, I think that the true end, this is how we could potentially see some results as an industry, is a
Mhm.
protest, a rally and a protest. We've had campaigns through change.org, and different types of petitions where you've had thousands and thousands of people signing on. Doesn't make a dent. You know, you had HIA, the Hemp Industries Association, at one point.
Mhm.
They partnered with some others as well. And like there was this big campaign in Times Square, hempislegal.org. You know, that made no dent whatsoever. Really, and potentially a lawsuit as well with big cannabis, maybe big hemp, and some powerful attorneys within the space could sign on and do some type of a lawsuit. But through what I've seen the past couple of years, in particular globally, it seems that real changes and messages are made when you see protests and rallies
Right.
and people coming together and like, we need change. Do
Yep.
something about this. This is unjust. Do something about it. And so I truly think that there needs to be a protest at maybe the Facebook headquarters, Meta headquarters, and a rally where you've got thousands of people that have come together and are just like, this is not fair. And like,
Right.
just going back to hemp is federally legal.
Mhm.
So I mean, you are going against your own policies per se and illegally suppressing lawful content. It's just
Mhm.
wrong. And, I say, as an industry, we might not agree with policies that they put in place, but if they were at least just clear about this is what you can do, this is what you can't do, we would obey because people don't want to lose their accounts. But it's just super unclear when it's that you can't be selling illegal drugs and here you are pushing hemp hearts to make hemp milk and your account gets shut down, or hemp paper and you can't advertise because you're illegally selling drugs. So I think it's probably more on the extreme side, but that's at this point, I think that we need to like show face on the headquarters ground and say, we need change and we deserve change.
I don't think that's extreme at all. I mean, if we've seen anything in the past couple of years, it's that massive grassroots movements can affect change, can change the way that the national conversation is shaped, can make massive change in communities. The biggest issue that I see for the cannabis industry is that the cannabis industry, we often talk about as like one big community, right? But it's very segmented and it has a lot of different opinions and a lot of different thoughts on what should be our priorities, what progress needs to be made, who's willing to stick their neck out and who's willing to, take one for the team and put their name on the dotted line. That I think is my experience of the biggest issue when it comes to advocacy in the cannabis industry. So I completely agree with you. I think a community-wide stance, which should be easy to get together since everybody is suffering the same lack of access, other than those who can pay to get in through the back door. Unfortunately, the trend has been you can't seem to get them to agree on anything to have one voice or
Yeah.
one ask.
Yeah, I mean, I would completely agree. I would say that's like one of the biggest downfalls of the industry is we'll just go with any like piece of legislation or a bill. Maybe everybody has the same end goal, but the way to get there is completely different. And you've got, infighting and all the things that come with it. Yeah, it's definitely what I see is probably one of the biggest downfalls of the space is just the inability to play nice and come together and look at the end goal and how can we as a community get there.
So as a small business, what do you recommend now? Like, this is where we are, nothing's changing for a bit. So as a small business owner who is trying to build enough of a following to sell a product, what do you suggest?
Oh, so, I mean, like, I feel like my brain is split in half with that. There's two ways to go about creating accounts and, gaining a following. I, as a content creator, would say that I still am more on the side of the wild side and not obeying and being risky and risking my account being taken down. You can do that where you're still promoting the plant actively, you're showing the plant, you're talking about it. Or on a safer side, you can create content that clearly refers to the plant. You could, use terms like oregano or like just quotation marks and like an icon of the plant. You can play it safe, or you can just, be more risky and show it. But in general, with social media, the way to get started and move forward is definitely being consistent, having a message that is consistent, People really value, this is like the biggest thing. People love to be educated about cannabis and hemp, even like enthusiasts and OGs that have been in the game forever and know all about it. When they see a really gorgeous picture and
Hmm.
just some rad education about what the plant can do, it's inspiring for everyone.
Yep.
So I would say to, get out there, begin creating content, figure out your voice, see what resonates, see what doesn't. You'll start seeing like what goes viral, what doesn't. And consistency is the main thing. And something that is very important also as you're getting into social media and creating accounts is just to be so real with yourself about boundaries of why
Hmm.
you're on social media. It's really easy to scroll and kind of get into these energy sucking dark places. And so setting boundaries for yourself is super important, and just being, it helps you stay straight with your mission and just being consistent and not going into the dark side.
It's so easy. It's so easy. I still haven't downloaded TikTok on my phone for that exact reason.
Yeah.
Instagram is enough of a
Yeah.
temptation once you're on it. But I love what you said about messaging, and it brings us to the last question I'm going to ask you today. And it actually, this morning I was scrolling through LinkedIn, and there was a conversation that was happening between a CEO of a marketing firm and a brand owner. And the CEO of a marketing firm posted an article that said, "Does your mayonnaise need a mission statement?" And it was talking about the CEO's position on the fact that he thinks we get too caught up in every product having a passion, and that not every product needs a passion, doesn't need a passion story behind it, doesn't need a communal goal. And the CEO of this products company was adamantly against that and said, it's very easy to make that argument, but we have enough products in the world that don't have any intention to them and don't have any passion. That's the last thing we need to be creating more of. And I find myself a lot of times when I'm talking to my clients about forming their company and involving and informing their strategy and getting involved in talking about the life of their company and how they're going to grow and how they're going to thrive in that growth, that I tend to be on the side of passion. What's your passion? What's your mission? What's your vision? Do you find yourself more on the side of not everybody needs a passion and a vision, but maybe they just need really great boundaries and a consistent story? Or do you fall in line more with the what I always say is, like, if you're not in love with it, you're going to lose your attachment to it, or somewhere in between?
Okay, so like I'll just give examples referring even to TikTok. So there's creators out there that have gained an audience just based on maybe appearance or just inspiration of beautiful locations that they're seeing. And
Sure.
so they have a following based on, really like materialistic type things. There's not this like passion behind this brand or person. These people are attached to like vanity in a sense.
Yeah, creating something that's not real. I mean, I'm guilty of it. Like, I have so many people with a
Yeah.
um travel influencers that I follow just because their pictures are beautiful and makes me
Yeah.
want to go to those places. Yeah.
Yeah. But not necessarily, attached to that person or their
Right.
story.
Yep.
And then you have some that will come on and they talk to their audience every day and go through their morning routine. And those are the types of people that have an audience that's very attached to them and what they're
Hmm.
using and what they're doing. And so when, so you have like those two different types of accounts. If one was to come out with a product, you would most likely go with the one that talks to you every day and, talks about their ups and their downs and what they go through. And you feel like actually attached to this person, where the travel content creator, you're more just into like their aesthetics and where they travel, not what they
Yep.
use per se.
That's very true.
So
Yep.
when it comes to like pushing products, I think that having that connection with your audience is quite important. But it kind of goes back to what you're looking for, because maybe this travel account gets higher views, and that just means more eyeballs are on it and more people are now aware about this location. So that's what you're looking for in a content creator's views, where maybe the other one doesn't have as many views, but they're able to sell a product a little bit easier.
Yeah.
So it all goes with what you're looking for in the brand and content creator, I guess. So I would say I fall more in the middle, but I think overall, the more impactful are the ones that have that deeper connection and like show their passions and missions and things like that with their audience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. But I love I really appreciate your nuance of kind of taking it back to what you originally said, which is knowing what you're looking for. If your marketing strategy is around increased views, more eyes on your product, more eyes on your account, then that's one strategy. And maybe you use that strategy on a certain platform. But maybe this other platform is more about the personalization of your product and your brand. And so you're more interested in less views, but in more people who stay and watch your content and then actually follow through to your website or whatever it may be. Which takes it back to your original point, which is know what you're looking for and find the right person for that strategy.
Yep. Yeah, because I can tell you that even just like CBD in general, you've got, let's say, some small mom and pop regenerative organic farms with beautiful product. And, they've got this beautiful mission behind them and story. And then you've got more of a commercialized large scale CBD. You've got a CEO that is not attached to the story at all, but they're really good at pushing out pretty products and have a marketing team behind them that knows how to push it. And in the long run, that larger scale commercialized company is probably making more than the mom and pop because they don't know how to push it out to an audience. So it's like the skills behind the marketing too.
Very much so. Well, Kate, I can't thank you enough for joining us today. I think this kind of information is invaluable to all entrepreneurs, but to cannabis entrepreneurs who deal with the extra fear of, being revoked at any moment. It's really an incredible expertise that you have. And I'm going to put the link to your website in our post for the interview, but please tell our listeners how they can reach out to you or follow you on your platforms.
Yeah, so my Instagram is Kate_Curley and my Facebook is Kate Curley. I'm on Twitter as well as KA Curley. Really, I'm on all social platforms, Snapchat and Triller and all those. As you know, I just got deleted from TikTok recently. So, but yeah, you can find me there. And I'm really big into, what's new with bills and legislation and pushing things like that, and new byproducts for industrial hemp. And so that's what you'll find there.
I love it. Thank you so much, Kate. And thank you to all our listeners, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks so much.